And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, scholars, leaders, executives, and everyone who's here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We called ourselves WILD. So the abbreviation is WILD, you know. So you'll notice that we are very, very wild in terms of how we do things. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know that we have a huge challenges in terms of the load shedding. Many people I know that would love to join us who are affected by the stage 6 load shedding. Even ourselves, there are those who will be kicked out at any given time. Others will join us as we proceed. So let us be flexible and understandable as leaders. Obviously, we know that is what we are going through at the moment. So the SWOT leadership, what the SWOT leadership for, to understand such things. So let me welcome our members, our regulars, the men and women who join us every Wednesdays to discuss leadership. We have been doing this thing for since 2020. Yeah, since 2020, we have been meeting together here as leaders. We call this the community of leaders because that is where peers talk to other peers, leaders talk to other leaders. 90% of people who are in our platform, our past speakers and our past panelists, I always say that our platform is very contagious. You attend one or you attend once, and then there will be that thing that will keep on saying, let me go there again, because it's worth it, you know. I mean, the men and women who comes here every Wednesdays, very, very busy people, top people from wherever they're coming from, scholars, academics from different universities, industry experts, executives from government and from private sector. So these are people who will leave everything to join us because they know there is no way you will not get something or get something out from these platforms. We're here to learn, we're here to unlearn and to relearn as leaders. We're here to correct ourselves, we're here to admonish ourselves, we're here to encourage ourselves as leaders. We're here to talk leadership. We always say, we say we are leaders in leadership. So we are here to talk leadership. So tonight, I'm not going to waste a lot of time really with the opening remarks because we've got two powerful speakers and I would like to give them enough time to engage us. And obviously, as you know, that we always have viable and very robust conversation amongst ourselves. I'm going to introduce both gentlemen whom I respect and admire the most, both of them. And actually, I'm so humbled that I managed to get them to come and join us. Very, very busy people, but I'm so humbled that I could see really Prof Edgars with us tonight. Our TG Brother Paul with us tonight, a very, very busy person. I'm sure you know, I don't even have to convince him or to convince you, sorry, because you know his plate is so full. But because of respecting us, because of respecting you, and because of respecting our country, he made the time and said, no, let me come and engage with the scholars and leaders so that we can learn from each other. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce both of them because I don't want to interrupt the flow of the discussion in between. Once I've introduced them, we'll start with the professor. Prof Edgars will give us his input, and then after that, TG Paul Mashatile will then give us his input as well. Remember, we are discussing and we are tackling leadership with impact tonight. What kind of leadership that has impact? You know, if you're a leader and if you were to call your followers, your subordinates, and say, can you assess me? What have I left? How would you define impact? I mean, in me, what would they say? So that's what we were discussing tonight, because leadership is very important. Everything is leadership, and leadership is everything. Without leadership, we are not gonna go anywhere. So let me not waste any time. Introduce the speakers, and then we'll continue. But before I introduce the speakers, let me give a special welcome to those who are joining us for the very first time tonight. If it's your first time, please feel free. This is the community of leaders. This is a safe space where leaders talk to each other, as I said, and then please would like to hear from you. Don't be diffident, don't hold back and say, no, it's my first time, I just want to check how they do things here. No, would like to hear from you as well. All of us, we are free to engage, to ask, to comment. We'll do that once the speakers have spoken, both of them. I will tell you, I will say that, yes, now the conversation starts. And then you can do that by raising your hand. We'll acknowledge you and give you time to speak, or you'll do that by or via our chat room. Without wasting time, let me introduce, and my dear brothers, I know you love me a lot, so you're not gonna crucify me here, because both of you, you've got very long profiles. And I know these are just your brief profiles, but are long. So if I don't read everything, please do not crucify me. Yes. So let me start with my brother, His Excellence, Professor Dr. Ambassador Tal Edgars. He's a visionary thinker, inspiring leader and intelligent strategist, thought leadership, operations program management, revitalization and expansion expert, resourceful networker, and persuasive negotiator. We've got here the man who identifies issues and delivers effective solutions, deliver development teams and leveraging resources, cultivating boards and donors, and driving communication and brands. He has met each goal in every one of these complex environments.
Good evening, colleagues. I'm going to step in for Mazwe. I think we've lost his connection due to the load shedding and other challenges that may have interrupted his connection with us. Welcome, Professor Dr. Tal Edgars. Welcome.
Thanks, my brother. Thanks, Andre. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Let me just finish off Prof. Edgars. So he said he holds 3 doctorates and also a bachelor's degree in international law and legal studies. He's got Doctor of Science of Law and Juridical Science, as well as presiding double masters in actuarial science, that is in mathematics and statistics, and also in economics and Chartered Institute of Marketing from the UK certification. He is currently the chairman of GBSH Consult Group worldwide, and also the chairman of the National Master Plan Task Team in South Africa in social entrepreneurship and social development. And also his experience spans a broad range of themes, including leadership efficacy, new venture creation, growth and competitiveness practice, foreign policy, government affairs, strategy, foresight, and etc. Ladies and gentlemen, that is His Excellency Professor Edgars that will be addressing us shortly. As I said, let me also introduce my brother there, Paul Mashatile. Then after that, Prof. Edgars will take over. As I said, that these 2 gentlemen have long CVs, so I'm just asking your indulgence as I won't be able to read everything. Mr. Paul Mashatile was born in Pretoria, where he schooled and later relocated to Alexandra for high school education. His activism in student politics started in the early 1980s when he took part in the formation of the Congress of South African Students, that is COSAS. He later championed the formation of South African Youth Congress, SACO. He led the initiative to form the Alexandra Youth Congress. Mr. Mashatile was recruited to the underground structures of the ANC in the late 80s during its period as an outlawed organization. He later constituted a team that formed the United Democratic Front. He was elected as the secretary of the UDF in Southern Transvaal when the ANC was unbanned, was amongst those who constituted the National Reception Committee that received the first contingency of life prisoners who were released before the negotiations. He got recruited to the Central Committee of the SACP in the province. When the ANC was unbanned, Mr. Mashatile served in the interim leadership core structures charged with facilitating the re-establishment of the ANC. He was later elected as the first provincial secretary of the ANC in Gauteng. He became the 5th chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. After the 1994 elections, he served in the first executive council as an MPL and MEC. In the province, he led 4 departments, that was transport, safety and security, housing, and also economic development and finance, before being a premier for a short while. He was later appointed the National Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture before being appointed the Minister of the department. In the current term, he was elected to the National Assembly, where he was appointed the parliamentary chairperson of the Portfolio Committee responsible for appropriations. He was recently appointed MEC for Human Settlement and COGTA. In 2017, Mr. Mashatile was elected as the Treasurer General of the ANC during the 54th ANC National Conference at Nazareth. That is Mr. Paul Mashatile, ladies and gentlemen. Without any wasting of time, let me ask the Honorable His Excellency Professor Dr. Ambassador Tal Edgars to take us through leadership with that impact. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the very hearty introduction. It is often times like this that I say it is an introduction that my mother would have believed and my father would have found very hard to recognize. However, that said, good evening to everybody. I take special recognition of my brother, Comrade Mashatile here. It is often times like this that I'm happy to be in the presence of people who I can consider peers. I do not claim to have an authority in this particular subject of leadership, but I have been requested to speak on and about, but I have thoughts that I would feel quite strongly I want to share with you, which thoughts I believe will be cross-fertilized by the thoughts of others in the discussion. But let me say from the very outset that the question of leadership is evergreen. If you will allow
Dr. Al is frozen.
Indeed, it seems like he has frozen. I was hoping you will come back. Prof, are you back? Prof Edgars, are you back? As we did say, ladies and gentlemen, that we are experiencing a network problem. So we are going to experience this, and please, yeah, I think the Prof is back. Over to you, my professor. If you can just unmute there, Prof.
Sorry about that, Prof. Apologies for that. I will go straight back to the conversation where I was saying that I am not using the word ideology in the classical sense to mean Marxism or Leninism or all those other isms that we will be relating to. I am talking about using ideology loosely to refer to the clarity to what independence meant and what it would mean to our people. So Prof quite mentioned while he was introducing that what kind of leadership are we looking for? Now, there is a question of co-creation or leadership for an intergeneration. And allow me some latitude to demonstrate. The average age of African leaders is 64 years old, and the average age of the population is 20 years old. That is a 40-year generational gap in the leadership. Co-leading is not about inheriting systems we don't understand. Wanted to have is to relate to something that we are all very familiar to. What was the Mandela leadership portrait? What was his mental magnitude? What was his spiritual depth? What was his self-knowledge? What was his incorruptibility and selflessness? And if we were to look closely at what the leadership lessons we would derive from that, then it would allow us during this engagement to draw the epistemological requirement of leadership, the metaphysics of leadership, and the morality of leadership from an axiology point of view. However, I argue as I start this, that there's a huge disconnection between the rulers and the ruled, and that the African nations can truly develop only when the leadership question is rightly settled. So drawing lessons from Madiba's conundrum, we argue that without comprehension, mental magnitude, spiritual depth, selflessness, incorruptibility, which are the core indigenous African leadership qualities that defined his persona, our long walk to democratic consolidation will ever remain a distant dream. So the conclusion that we need to argue is there a need for revolutions in the aim and methods of power engineering so that the basic aim becomes the promotion of social, economical, and political important desires? Or will it be the promotion of wisdom in leadership by rational means and not by knowledge means? Will we argue that the new Africa of the 21st century is calling on African leaders to domesticate the capability and the capacity and ability to appreciate and grasp the salient details, as well as the practical and temporal implications of a given problem? unless it shall come to pass that philosophers are kings, or those who are now called kings and potentates be imbued with sufficient measure of genuine philosophy, there will be no cessation of ills for the state nor for the human race. Neither can the commonwealth which we have now sketched in theory ever till see the light of the day. Thank you, Prof. I look forward to conversations.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks, my professor. Thank you very much for your input. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is a conversation. Once Brother Paul has spoken, then we'll open up to the conversation. So thanks, my professor. Now, we have already introduced Paul Mashatile, and we'd like to give it to you, Brother Paul, and then we'll engage all of you after the conversation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, because we have stage 6 load shedding here in Johannesburg. So I may have the same problem like.
If you can just, TJ, can you unmute TJ? Mr. Mashatile, can you unmute, please? Mr. Mashatile, can you unmute, please? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry for that, Prof. A very good evening to everybody, and thank you to.
It seems like your machine is jealous. They doesn't want us to hear you. Please unmute again.
Okay, let me see what's the problem. I think it's okay now.
It's okay now. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Sorry for that. I was saying good evening to everybody, and to my brother, Dr. Tal Edgars, and for his input. Prof, let me just indicate that I'll also try to be brief, like Dr. Edgars, so that we allow for engagement. Firstly, I want to start on the basis that leadership is about people. Throughout history, we know that when we talk about leaders, we talk about people who are making impact on the life of others. And depending on what kind of leaders they are, they either make a positive or a negative impact.
If you can just unmute there again, so sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, over to you.
Yeah,
excellent.
Thanks, Prof. I'm not sure what's wrong with my gadget here. It could be.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I was saying, Prof, that I want to start on the basis that leadership is about people. It's about impacting on the life of others. And it may be positive, it may be negative. And I want to look at leadership in a positive sense. And I think one of the things that Dr. Edgars indicated was selflessness. You know, the willingness to serve others without reward. wanting to improve the life of other people. But when you talk about leadership, words that come into my mind would include vision. Leaders must be able to say where to. If you are a leader of a country, an organization, where do you want to take this organization to, or this country, or even an association? But secondly, leadership is also about courage, especially when we lead, we get into difficulties, we get into challenges. So you need people who have courage, people who are brave, but more importantly, people who are decisive. Because often societies fail because leaders don't decide. And I don't want for once to imply that you should not consult when you are a leader. Consultation is often very important, but there comes a time when leaders must make decisions and move forward. So those are the words that come in: courage, decisiveness, but also integrity. If there's no integrity in leadership, then you can't impact positively on the lives of people. And that's why, Prof, I would say that, you came with this topic at the right time, because this is a time when we in the ANC are preparing for national conference. And one of the biggest debates now is that what kind of leaders are we going to elect? We started a process that says, let us renew ourselves. We come from a period where we were accused as leaders that we captured the state, we are allowing corruption to thrive. So we're going to this conference with the theme unity and renewal. We want to unite, but we want to renew the way we work. We want to renew the way the organization works. But more importantly, we want to come out of that conference with leaders that have integrity, leaders that have courage to ensure that there's real change and transformation in our country, leaders that must ensure that whatever we do, we put people first. In South Africa, like many countries in the continent, we have a lot of people who are unemployed, particularly young people, people who live in poverty, people who are homeless, etc. So when you are a leader in our organization, for instance, those are the issues that must preoccupy you. What am I going to do to ensure that I improve the lives of these people? And that's what we want to see happening in December, that we must come out and say, as the leaders of the organization and our people, we're going to focus on transformation, on making sure that we do make it real, that people have a better life. So it's not a slogan. So those are the issues, Prof. I will throw in so that I don't take long so others can come in, but let's bring these values into leadership with impact, positive impact, if I may say, impacting positively on the lives of people and changing them for the better. I think let me leave it there for now so that we allow for engagement. Thank you very much, Prof, and thanks to Dr. Edgars as well.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, TJ. Thanks a lot to this. Straight to the point. Wonderful nuggets there. Very, very good. Actually, I must say that with due respect, if someone didn't know you, would not have said you are coming from the ANC with these values that we are advancing here. because I think if I can just shoot there, TG, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, yes, now we are into conversation. But what's wrong? What's wrong, TG? Because I mean, these values that we are putting here, it's absolutely perfect. They encapsulate exactly that's what leadership is all about. But what's wrong? What exactly? Why? Yeah, let me just say what's wrong.
Well, Prof, maybe let me start by saying, you should be saying that is why you're talking about renewal. Because we have come to accept, Prof, that where we are, we're sort of declining with respect to those values. You know, the ANC has a long history of more than 100 years, came back from exile, many people joined. And I think there was a time when, as people joined, we probably lowered the bar. People came in for various reasons. Possibly others came in because they thought, well, I'm going to be a councillor, a minister, well, I'll earn a lot of money. So we want to bring back the focus on the real values. And that's why, for instance, in the ANC now we're intensifying political education of members, because we realize that the decline that is seeping in is because of members who sometimes lack the understanding why they are here. We are here to serve, not to look for rewards. You know, I was speaking in an event in Alexander last week, and I was reminding the audience there that when Che Guevara left Cuba, he wrote a letter to Fidel Castro and said to Fidel, I'm leaving to go and fight struggles in other countries, but I leave my family behind. And he said to Fidel, I don't want anything special for my family, because I know with you there, what the Cuban people will eat, they shall eat. That's what we call selflessness. So I was saying to the audience, when we serve as leaders of the ANC, don't bring us rewards. I said to the comrades, then Alex, I said, don't come to my house and buy me a suit because you think I'm doing a good job. In fact, come to my house because you have problems that you want me to assist you with, engage with. So in short, Prof, I'm saying, yes, you can characterize us of having been in some period of decline, but we want to get now seriously on a road of recovery, on renewal, bring back the real values of the organization, which is the organization that must truly serve our people.
Thanks, TG. Thank you very much. And it's what Prof. Edgars alluded to there when he spoke about the Madiba values that obviously would characterize the leadership with impact that we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, because I'm a very generous person, I don't want to be alone here. I know that you left many important things and I respect you a lot to be here. So I want to give you time now. Let us engage the speakers and engage each other as well. We can do that by raising your hand, and it can be brief and concise, straight to the point, whether it's just an observation or question, or you can do that via a chat room. Let me see if there are any hands already. Any hands who want to start asking the speakers, so that we're talking about leadership with impact. And I think it's so important that we really think about this, about the kind of, and I'm happy as the TG is saying that focusing on in the next week's conference is like the question, what kind of leaders are we going to elect as the ANC, or what kind of leaders is the ANC is going to elect, or the ANC should elect, or what kind of leaders should serve South Africa if we want the organization to continue. I see a first hand there from my brother Andre. Andre is from Cape Town. Over to you, my brother Andre. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mazwe. And the question goes out to both Tal and Paul. You know, having grown up in this country as an ANC member, no longer the case, I've typed in the chat, greatness existed in the ANC and the people who led this organization. I know, because I learned from a lot of them. This is no longer the experience I have of so many ANC leaders. My question to Paul and Tal, I know you may not be leading in the ANC, but how will you exit the rotten values that seem to have taken hold of this amazing organization of past? It's a simple question. How will you rid the collective of the rotten values that seem to have taken hold of our glorious organization? I'll listen in anticipation, Paul and Tal.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Let me start with Prof. Edgars, probably coming from the independent and objective, and not saying that Paul won't be objective, but obviously we are talking about his organization. What would you say, Edgars, in responding to Andre's question, and then obviously we'll give Paul as well to comment there. Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you, Andre. I was looking forward to this question because I realize it's a question that we cannot escape when we decide to talk about leadership. The first thing is we need to have a reliable barometer of what true leadership is. And I think it is often that we're in such areas where we are talking about what is true leadership. And we are saying, what kind of leaders do we need? But how about we start by looking, what kind of leaders do we not want at all? Because the metric and the standard, leadership is not about inflation. It's not about altitude. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. And for as long as we are basing our leadership on intensity, that a leader must be based on the fact that we have been in party for 20 years and 30 years, it doesn't begin to hold water as to what was the impact. And perhaps allow me this, I would like to allude to a bit of a slightly vexing aphorism. In 19th December 2018, in the 54th National African Congress Conference at Nasrec, which was at 2017, our inflection point was when then the new president of the ANC was Cyril Ramaphosa, right? And we were all very jubilant. So let's take it back to 1994. Nelson Mandela takes after 350 years of subjugation. He literally inherited a technically bankrupt country, right? In 5 years, the GDP quadrupled, so the slope of the curve is facing upwards and forwards. He literally led for 3 out of those 5 years. The last 2, he delegated them to Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki's administration added a trajectory by giving us 43 consecutive quarters of positive GDP growth. We were adding 500,000 families into the middle class, defined as a combined household income of $8,000 to $10,000 per annum. What am I trying to say? I am saying that the metrics must be fixed in order for us to allow that oath of office is not oath of office based on the classical theory of the abstractism of me saying I am taking a coalition of hope or I'm taking a coalition of willing. It means that you're coming into office to lay down a structure of intervention that will deliver on what is termed in legal terminology as universal suffrage, the hope of the people. And so I feel that we have to go back to the basics and say that this is the barometer of the leadership we need. These are the kind of results that we're looking at. If we are talking about jobs, do our leaders understand the cost per job for each South African? And if you understand the cost per job, then are we realistic in saying we can create 300,000 jobs within a specific period of time? I feel if we can put it down to those interventions, if we can start to hold them more accountable, we would be able to get back to the position of us having control of the entire economy than losing it at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Thank you very much. Brother Paul?
Yes,
Over to you.
yes, Prof. If I may come in, I think Tal took some of my words there. I want to start exactly there, that we must hold our leaders accountable. I think that's a major starting point for me. And I also agree that there must be a barometer. When people come to leadership position, it must not be because I like you or somebody like you. There must be a test that you are fit for purpose. For me, that's very important. And also to ensure that leadership understands that there must be change. And Tal, you were saying earlier that, even when Madiba had 5 years, after 3, he said, look, I'm passing on the baton. But he didn't just pass a baton. He made sure that this is someone that he think is now able to do the job, because was working with him. But they didn't say, look, I need to finish my 5 years, I must stay in another 5 years, another 5 years. So leadership must be able to understand that there's time to leave and pass the baton. And that's why we have been emphasizing a lot this theory of intergenerational leadership. Because also you don't want to say to leaders, okay, you are now the old guys, out you go, new ones. And sometimes you need the balance, because, those who have been there for a while have wisdom that they must pass to the young ones. So the way to get rid of the rot is to ensure accountability. And when we talk accountability, it must be the understanding that where there is wrongdoing, where leaders are going astray, that there must be action. The ANC recently came with a number of rules, including step aside, that if you are a leader, you are now found to one team because you are accused of wrongdoing or corruption, you should step aside. And in some instances, you should resign or you should be suspended. Inability to act in that manner allows the rot to continue. So I'm happy that the ANC has reached that stage where they are saying we cannot allow a situation where people we call leaders reflect badly on the organization and on society, where people think, but these are a bunch of corrupt people. So I'm saying, Prof, we should act, hold leaders accountable, and accountability must include that you can be fired, you can be dismissed. We must not act like we're a bunch of friends who must, make favors for one another. Real leadership and real tests requires that we act at all times in the interests of the people.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Wonderful. I speak to leaders because it's my job. It's something that I do almost every day. And I've got whether I do it at business schools or different leaders forums, I've got a lecture or I've got a program that I designed. It's called "What Kind of Leaders Do People Follow?" And then obviously we pick up different, and then we say, and then it depicts those leaders that really people would like to follow. But I like what you said, Prof. Edgars, tonight, that probably we can ask that what kind of people do, or what kind of leaders do people follow, or what kind of leaders we need. And I like the way we said that maybe we need to ask a question, is that what kind of leaders that we do we not need? Maybe if you can start from there, then let's just start from what we do not need. Probably TG for ANC, that okay, yes, this is the kind of leaders we like to elect for the next 5 years for ANC. hopefully go for 2024, but what kind of leaders that we do not need, you know, and that is very, very important, and that's a very important a starting point from there. I see hands there, my sister then Tsapo, and then there's another question from Paul Makudu in the chat room, Pell, sorry, Pell. If you don't mind, we can allow you to express yourself after Tsapo. Otherwise, we can read your question. So we'll take Tsapo, and then she'll be followed by Pell. Over to you, Sister Tsapo.
Good evening to the panel and to you, Prof, and everyone that's on the call. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I think this conversation came really at an opportune time, especially as facing some of the daunting challenges. So I think Prof Edgars made a crucial point that there's a 40-year generational gap between the leaders in Africa and the youth of Africa. So now I just want to ask to Mr. Mashatile, going into the elective conference, what is the ANC doing to ensure that their young people, or they empower their young leaders to take up the national leadership positions? Because as we are seeing, it's almost like they are recycling people that we know without looking at who can actually take national leadership as a young person. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you very much, and Tsapo, thank you very much, sis. Pearl, would you like to express yourself there?
Thank you very much, Prof, and good evening, everyone. It's really not my question. I was just capturing what Andre was saying, just for it to be on the chart. Thank you.
She's done, Prof. Prof, unmute.
It's me. Thank you. Yeah, no, she's done, TG, so you can respond to it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me respond to Tsapo. Yes, Tsapo, you're quite right. We do need to encourage young leadership to come on board. In fact, if you look at the nominations now towards the conference of the ANC in December, more than 50%, if not 60%, are young people. And we really encourage that. I think it's something that we've started pushing very hard. I mean, if you look at a lot of leaders in the branches of the ANC, in the regions, provinces, even in municipalities and so on, it is becoming younger and younger and younger. So I agree with you. We must close the gap. As my brother Tal said, that, you know, the 40-year gap is quite too much. We need to bring young leaders and bring them fast, but train them, allow them to be exposed to challenges out there. But in short, I'm saying, Tsapo, we are doing it.
Thank you very much, TJ. Thank you so much. And I think we must give credit where it's due. I mean, really having seen the top 200 nominations is very, very encouraging there in terms of mixed generation mix. Yeah, I think we must congratulate you for as an organization for that. Although, yeah, there's still some worries there in terms of gender, but I'm sure you will answer that some stage. Let me give Owen I see Owen's here. Owen, over to you, sir.
Good day, Prof. I hope you are able to hear me. Okay. I think my question is to the leadership, which really is what I believe everybody is grappling with globally, the so-called untested leadership. if you can see in the global politics, Trump wants to come back, and we just have seen recently the Brazilian former president is back, and now we have in our public domain our former president Mbeki is back with a lot of venom in his mouth. And my biggest question is to you, leadership. How do you test the leadership that is not in the public domain? Because I think that's the biggest problem. The leaders that we have today, they are not seen. And we as a general public, we do not trust people that we don't see. That's the problem. How do you begin to test that leadership that it's in the private space? Because I believe there is a big fear of change. If you let somebody that you don't know to take over, what will happen? Will this person collapse things? Will he advance things? You know, so I wanted to throw that question, that how do you test privately a leadership that is not in the public eye? Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, Owen. Thank you very much. Probably we can take another question there from Paul Clady. Paul, would you like to express yourself? We can read your question if you prefer that. I think there's a question there in the chat room, but I always give people an opportunity to say it for themselves. But if you want us to read the question, you can do that. Paul?
You are muted, Prof.
Again, hey, thanks, TJ. So Paul Clady said, Prof and TG, there appear to be conflict between the aspirations of the young, the process and criteria of electing branch to national leadership, and the qualities required from leaders in leadership positions. How are we going to merge or synchronize this? These are questions. So questions, two questions from Owen and Paul. We start with you, Prof. Edgars, and then we will pick up TG after you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for, again, allowing me an opportunity to share my thoughts. As I said before, Owen has raised a very good question. However, the question again points to the psychology and the idea around moralism, right? Before elections happen, the leaders do everything that we want them to do. Apparently, what it seems like we want them to do. They take pictures in the communities, they kiss babies, they're there in the community. If that is the barometer we are going to use to say that a leadership is present, then we have suffered ideally the idea of the dividend of time, because immediately they come into power, then what we thought we saw and what we get are two different things. So the first is an indication as to what exactly is it that we are looking for in this leadership. And there's a belief that the theory of Homo economicus, which is the profit of myself, is the first level of thinking that we must eradicate completely from leadership. That there must be authenticity, that there must be ethical leadership. And if those are the standards that we are setting, then what would the barometer look like? And what would be expected before a leader is entitled to contest for a position? Because if you will remember correctly, when we read in business today about the King for governance, we have a laid out structure and procedure as to what leadership must look like if you're in a listed organization. There are certain recommendations that we have made. Now, the same things exist within the African National Congress. It is not indifferent. The problem becomes, are we aware of the tools that are at our disposal when we discuss about what leadership looks like? I have often found that people interweave those two things very wrongly. Because they don't know, then they make it an issue of leadership. Remember that if I do this, there are four other fingers that are facing me. So there's no leader who has a stamp of authority without the four fingers that are pointing back at you. What am I talking about? I'm talking about collective leadership. And collective leadership comes from the point of, I will hold you accountable based on the idea of Ubuntu, that because I am, you are, right? Now, if we were to take it back to what Paul was speaking about, and he says that What would be the criteria of electing branch to national leadership and the qualities required from leaders? I think there's an idea of conflict, and the idea of conflict is what we call contractual conflicts in terms of social contract conflict. First, we must be able to understand that collaborative governance will create jobs. What is the leader's vision? And I will go back to what Comrade TG said. What's the vision the leader is presenting? Away from the vision, what are the areas of intervention that the leader is speaking to that are sustainable? Why do I speak about sustainability? See, when we talk about the South African economy, we have a triangle. The triangle means that the super rich are right at the top, and at the bottom, we have all the people who are poor, not speaking about the 18 million people who are on social welfare. Now, growing economies are supposed to be diamonds. You have the super rich up there, and you have this, but we have the middle income. If we are not ready to hold our leaders in terms of competition, which is a measure of performance, how did this leader do? There must be an audit that seeks to engage the public. And I have often said the public is not aware that before things go into a bill, there's what we call a public consultation. At what point do we engage with leadership? We might not engage with them from the mere basis of seeing them every day, but there are tools in place that remind us that right from the social values to the policy value, there's then what we can look at in terms of operational and administrative failures. So we must question them based on what is open to us. And I'll give a perfect example. I argued this matter some time back when somebody said at the 54th ANC conference in December 2017, that the South African Reserve Bank, the job must be of monetary policy and currency stability. And my question was, did you know that in the Constitution, that the Reserve Bank derives its mandate directly from the Constitution as a Chapter 9 institution? The reason was because this member had not read Chapter 9 institution. So until we are aware, we cannot be able to question a process that we know nothing of, because all will be good and dandy. We must hold them accountable on the parameters that are presentable to us, because that is what the law lives by, precedent. We must be able to have that flexibility to test that. The same way we have a proof of concept and a proof of strategy, there must be a proof of leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Thank you very much. Comrade TG, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. And let's thank Owen for the question. I just want to start by saying Owen is correct. I don't think societies or communities, people out there, must vote for people they don't know. So absolutely right, because you are quite right that, you know, when leaders come, there's an election next year, we make very good speeches, good promises. What communities must ask themselves is that, but you haven't been here before. Who are you? And that's what, in my approach, I encourage all members of the ANC, live in communities, work with communities on a daily basis. Don't come because there's a by-election or there's an election, you want to be elected. Go there when there are problems. There's a pipe that has burst, water is leaking. A leader must be there in the community and assisting on how to get to the municipality to fix the pipe. Because in that way, communities start knowing their leaders. When they go and vote, they don't vote for you because you're making good speeches. They vote for you because they know. So I will agree with Owen that tested leaders means leaders who are participating in daily struggles. And if you have those kind of leaders coming forth, then you won't have chance takers, untested leaders, You made the example of Trump. You will have those kind of leaders when true leaders create a gap. Because sometimes let's face it, sometimes good leaders don't want to be in public office. And then there's a gap. And once there's a gap, you'll have untested leaders, chance takers coming in. So I agree with you, Owen. Let's know our leaders. But the way of knowing it is they must be there where we live. They must be there where we are fighting struggles. They must be there where we are pushing development, working with us daily. Paul Tadi said, tension between the old and the young. My sense is that there will always be tension in the intergenerational leadership. You hear sometimes leaders are saying, well, these young people, why are they rushing? They must serve their time. And the young leaders are saying, yeah, no, but you have been there forever. You'll always have this tension. We must just make it a healthy tension by agreeing that there has to be intergenerational leadership over time. We need to pass the baton, must bring new people, and it must not be a question of, go out so we can come in. But a process that leads to a proper way of handing over, sharing experiences, and making room for young leaders to come in. I think it's time that we must see more and more young leaders in Africa leading. It's happening throughout the country and throughout the world. We too must go on that trajectory. We must begin to see more young leaders, and they mustn't come by chance. We need to encourage that and get more young leaders coming in, trained, prepared to take over the baton from the old generation. But you'll always have this tension. I also agree with Tal that one of the things that strengthen our accountability is collective leadership. Because within collective leadership, you have criticism and self-criticism. And that's what builds leaders. And to accept criticism. Yes, criticize others, but accept when you are criticized, because that's how you will become better. That's how we'll grow. Because collective leadership means exactly that. You are not alone there. You're working with a team, but a team that is prepared amongst themselves to criticize one another. Because if we do that, we're going to build good leadership that will take us forward. Thanks, Prof.
Thanks very much, TG. Thanks a lot. I've seen I don't know whether it was a question there, Dr. Sonti in the chat room, whether it was a remark or what, but Dr. Sonti will be first if you would like to engage the speakers. I think you want to talk about accountability, and then you'll be followed by, I see my brother then Kenke, and then we'll be followed by brother Siboniso Duma. In that order, please. Dr. Sonti first, followed by Nkenke, and then brother Siboniso. Dr. Sonti.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Yeah, I was still on this issue of accountability and barometer. And I want to ask the panel there, don't they see or don't they think that the biggest problem we have now, all political parties, are barometers themselves, are holding themselves accountable. Whenever there's a problem with them or around them, they are the very same people who sit to deal with their own cases. let me take, for example, the very leaders who sit in the step aside role in our ANC are some of the people who are gunning for positions, who wanted to remove others to get in. Can't there be a possibility of a total independent structure that any political leader or any member of parliament, when he has done something wrong, should be totally investigated and be dealt with by an independent structure? Because to me, they are accountable to themselves. When they wanted to vote their member out or in, it's still we're relying on them to do it in the cabinet or in their meetings. As citizens, we seem disempowered. That's my problem. Can there be another system to hold leaders, all leaders in different political parties in the cabinet? Can't we have another structure to do this task for us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much there, my brother, Dr. Sonti. Let me take, we'll take Nkenke and then we'll take Sboniso. We'll come back to Andre and then we'll take those three for now and then we'll ask the panelists to respond. My brother Nkenke, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prof, for a great conversation. I'm really enjoying myself coming from the inside of, of the ANC. I know that many people are progressive on this platform, but being an active ANC member, I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's something that we really lack a lot in political education, and I just hope that this conversation will continue beyond this online platform. Just 2 points. One is that I just want to, you know, when Barack Obama won the Democrats' endorsement against what is called the Washington establishment of the Democrats, I celebrated, firstly because he is a product of a free African who voluntarily went into the US and married or got involved in an Irish woman there, and Barack Obama was born. So that was my first celebration. But secondly, it made me think about slavery, to think that there were, I think there is an estimate of about 12 million Africans that were taken into, you know, the transatlantic slavery. And as an African, I've reflected deeply on this question, and I've said, I don't think the Europeans and all those people that docked their ships on the coastal of Africa went inland to take slaves away from Africa into those ships and so on. Millions died going there. African kings and leaders collaborated with the slave drivers and slave owners to take Africans out there. And the point that I'm making is that I think the mistake that we should not make is to have a particular expectation of an African leader as somebody who will always put people first. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to instill this selflessness, not based on European values and so on. Let's take the example of a very small country that is doing very well in the continent after you know the tragedy that took place there, right? The Gagama leadership is showing us something about something that we really need in the continent about putting people first and ensuring that the streets are clean and all that. But on the other hand, of course, we can criticize and say maybe it's too much of a dictator and so on. We need democracy and all that. So the point that I'm making is that let's not come up with a standard in Africa of a leader that we're expecting because of the way that Europeans are looking at us, because there are sellouts. African kings were sellouts. They were collaborators in the slave trade, and many Africans were exported and killed and so on. So leadership, we need to come up with our own way of understanding what leaders, what is Africa looking for in leadership. The second point is about something that is closer to home, the question of coalition governments. We know now that coalition governments are not good for service delivery. The question that I'm asking myself is, why is it that smaller parties are having so much influence in our democracy? What has happened to a collaboration between parties that are center-left, like the ANC, and parties that are center-right, like the DA? Why is there no greater dialogue created to stabilize local government in particular, and maybe even provincial government? Coalitions are failing us, they are failing the people, and it is a question of leadership. We need leaders that can cross the ideological divide and work together to ensure that there is stability, especially at local government. Those are my 2 points. Thank you, Prof.
Can I come in right now, Prof?
Maybe Prof is muted.
Yeah, it looks like it's muted.
I actually don't see Prof on the screen.
I could proceed with your permission, TG. It would be... Yes.
I don't see Prof on the screen.
Should I proceed?
Maybe. I think proceed. Maybe he was kicked out, he'll come back. Yeah, just proceed.
No. Thank you so much, Comrade TG. Let me thank as well, Prof. I think I agree with what has been articulated by Comrade Nkenke, that this platform ought to be articulating or projecting the progressive element within our society. I've got 3 points. Number one, the middle stratum that has been created by the new dispensation of ANC government after 94. I don't think we have taken a chance or a space of trying to dismantle or demystify the mythology that has been created out of an ideological superstructure. I think our media, whose voice are being heard in the media, is not controlled by us. The issue of judiciary, I don't think it will be transformed as a result of the education or the lack of education system. The education system will seem to be more on regurgitating what transpired from the Caucasians. Why do I say that? Simply because we are lacking ideologues these days. We don't have the new information. We are only still consuming of what came with the colonizers in our continent called Africa, which is why even the benchmark of checking the good leadership is something that is ensued from the typical understanding. And Paul Freire spoke deeply about it on the pedagogy of the oppressed. So on the issue of ideological superstructure, I was referring to Marx ideology, that as long as we don't deal with it, we'll still be oppressed. And we are worried that these days, the benchmark that you'll see, I'm just going to talk about the ANC at this point in time. We are saying that the organization is weak. In some instances, we're saying that there is a deficiency of leadership. Whereas we don't produce ideologues in the societal. In the past, we used to have a very strong civil society organization, NGOs, but those are no longer there. Even academia, they stand on the periphery or on the side of the fence, very antagonistic towards the change as if nothing has happened. Then the second contemporary point is how do we address the economic outlook? Because for me, as long as you've got the minority regarded as the haves, then the blacks in particular are going to suffer immensely, because the issue of capitalism as the system is very inherent with corruption, and it has not been addressed like that. And capitalism work by all means to maximize the profit. If there's a need, they'll just make sure that they ship whatever instrument, they will decrease the number of employment as long as they are going to maximize, and the government of the day will then bear the brunt and people will blame the state. And we have not addressed that imbalance that is slowly coming up. I see even the middle startup these days is no longer active on dealing with the Principal Act and the issue of BE. They think that it is possible because after 27 years, you might have achieved someone. For me, it is so disingenuous that what took place 352 years, then you could just derail and address it within 28 years or 30 years. And I know there are some discrepancies in the ruling party. And then the last point is the matter of, I agree as well with the sentiment that let us collaborate on this effort and continue with this, because we seem to be acting like firefighters. We no longer have a core group that is deliberating on the diversity of us. In particular, I'm referring to, I'm a little bit biased towards Africans and blacks in particular, because the real challenges, the triple challenges, it is us that at the end of the day will suffer. Because the coalition government, for instance, in my last point is that in our country, the white male domination will still persist. Because take, for instance, from 94 up to today, you only have two white parties, DA and Freedom Front Plus. And how many black parties have been formulated, and formulated by whom? We know that who funds them. So just to divide us as Africans in particular. So if we could just talk at a high proposition about those matters, we'll probably find the solution, as opposed to us blaming each other, hating each other, and destroying each other on deep division in whatever we touch, in particular as blacks in the country, because we don't produce anything, but we seem to be consuming everything produced by Caucasians, and we think that we are progressively going to achieve something. Thank you so much. I'm sure Prof is back now, but thank you so much, TG, and I agree with what you have addressed as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Babum Tombe there. Thanks, my brother, Sboniso. It shows that we are really leaders here. I mean, obviously, I was affected by the network. From what Ubabuke Kane, my brother Nkenke, and then Mtombeni, I will ask my speakers to respond to that, or panelists to respond to that. Then we'll come back and take another round of hands there. Sit and be there. We'll come back to you, my sister. Can we start with you, TG, and then we'll take the Prof after you. TG, are you still with us? I'm sure network there. Probably let's go with you, my professor there, Prof Edgars.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think the very key issues that have been raised by the rest of the audience, and one of the things that we'd like to look at is Western paternalism. And this has evaded, and we are not an outpost of Europe. I think that was one very key issue that we found. Now, Socrates was once quoted to have said that he who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. On the other hand, he who knows not and knows that he knows not is a wise man. Now, leadership qualities demand the leader to have a character of self-examination. And I think as much as we are also saying what leaders need to be, there must be an inflection point and an argued point that leadership is serious business. It is not a route to riches, okay? It's serious business. It requires critical thinking, rationally compelling positions, rationally convincing policies, and rationally persuasive actions. Why do I say so? Like Socrates, Mandela sees self-knowledge as a necessary quality of human existence and appropriated self-knowledge as a liberating tool. Now, let's look at what the C-suite and leadership of today looks like. Now, if we were an outpost of Europe, when you look at 86 of the CEOs and leaders, you could be anywhere else in Europe, in the world. 90% of our population is Black, and Black defined in our then new Labor Relations Act is all those who are excluded on the basis that they are white, colored, Indians, and Africans. That's Black. Yet their representations in positions of leadership was 14.3% on the 20th anniversary of the Employment Commission. Tabitha Kabinda, the chairperson, shows those stats. In 2018, we went below 14.3%, and yet 90% of the population is Black, 51% of the population is female. I believe until we get to a certain point where we can have a very clear idea and understand the positions that we have and what assets they carry, then we would understand that leadership is a function of knowledge and wisdom. So it flows from knowledge to wisdom grounded in epistemic, metaphysical, and moral content. It has less to do with what people seem it to be, and those virtues must be embedded in the African leadership culture. In all democracies, knowledge informs a visionary and listening leadership. So if we were to look at Abu Bakr Atiku's public confession and desire when he spoke of Madiba, and he says, when a leader listens and he's committed, the rest will follow. And the leadership does not have to say something several times before he's believed. A country is developed by people, and the people need someone to organize them, to train them, and to motivate them. If the leader is honest and even-handed in his dealings with people, the people believe him or her. But when the head is rotten, the rest of the body tends to rot as well. I believe that this is a very clear answer to the fact that leadership must be also a point of self-audit. Do I meet the basic minimum to promote consensus rather than conflict? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, my professor. Thank you very much. The TG is just affected by network, but is reconnecting. We'll continue. Obviously, I think he had Dr. Sondi when he spoke, and then Ubabukekane and Nobabu Mtombeni. But let me take my brother there, Andre Young. Andre, and then we'll take Tembi after Andre. Andre, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Mazwe. Tal, I have to agree with you. I think Keke said something beautiful. You know, leadership is about, are you becoming a better person? Are you becoming a better human being? Because it starts there. Not a better politician, not a better CEO, a better person. Because once you can be a better person, you might be able to be a better partner to others. And start close to home. Start with your wife or your partner if you're in a same-sex relationship. And then ask yourself, can you be a better parent? You know, this better person, better partner, better parent is where we start with the bar. We don't have to make this philosophical, historical, and become too academic about basic. Better person, better partner, better parent. You know, Ubuntu, having been raised mixed race, my grandmother is from Umlazi, KwaZulu-Natal. Sponis, I may have had a white man contribute to the gene pool, but I was raised Zulu. Ubuntu, to become the highest potential of yourself. That goes back centuries in our culture, in our history. Forget politics. Am I a better person, a better partner, a better parent? And therefore, can I be a better professional? Now we start talking about, can I play a role as a politician or as a business person to affect the lives of others? And you know, when you are a better person, influencing people is automatic because they'll take influence from you. They can see you're a better person, Wena. You're a better partner in many endeavors, not only in your personal relationship, but in your business engagement, in your political relationship, even in the club or the church, you can influence. And then comes that beautiful word of our conversation to the impact. But you know, every good leader I know of, myself included, I consider myself a good leader. We know how to build things, not destroy things. Build other people, not destroy other people. You know, I ran a company for many years called Zakeni. Build yourself, Zakeni Computing. And we built hundreds of Black people in this country to build a bar of excellence in ICT, none across the world. And a lot of these guys are all over the world now, plying their trade. So a leader must build. But you can only build when you've solved your own person, your partnering and your parenting. And a leader must decide. I like what Paul said, a leader must decide. But I get a sense that we've tried to complicate this thing by giving it all sorts of metrics and all sorts of KPIs and all sorts of, hey man, come back to the simple thing. Am I able to become the best and highest version of myself before I die? Because you will die. It's a fact. And over this time that we have left in these bodies and the change that's inevitable, we must stop this pointing at the West and pointing at capitalism and pointing at the failures of systems around the world. Because let me tell you, us human beings, us Africans, we built these systems. We maintain these systems. We allow these systems to continue to create the poverty and the impoverishment of the people of our beautiful country. So I'll leave it there, but it comes back to three things. Am I a better person, a better partner, and a better parent? Start with your own kids. That's the metric we need. It must be simple. That's the impact that's required. Thank you, Prof.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, Andre. Thank you very much. You know, I know that obviously tonight, because of we would like to take the advantage of the presence of the TG and I mean the big guns from the ANC that I see tonight in this call, and we appreciate that. I know that it's more about the ANC, and obviously they are governing party. We should really engage them. But talking about leadership with impact, what about private sector? What about community? What about religious bodies, Dr. Sonti? I mean, we are there. And I'm not saying let's move from, obviously, the bigger issues that we have in the country. But I just want to say, let's just look at, because remember, we are talking about leadership with impact here. And I think it was Kenke and Boniso talking about even scholars. What about academics in terms of this impact? Professor Edgars, we always say that leadership is influence, yes, but what about the impact of that influence? You know, when you're a leader, you must influence, and then what will that influence leave to those people that you are leading as a leader, while we are still waiting for TJ. Over to you, my professor. And anyone can obviously answer the question, ladies and gentlemen. This is a conversation. We do have our panelists, but we appreciate the robustness of the discussion. Prof. Edgars, and then we come to Tembi.
Thank you so much, Professor Majola. And I really like what Andre has raised, because it was something that I ponder around. So allow me to pose a slightly vexing aphorism. I have often asked my wife, when exactly did you fall in love with me? What time? Do you know the time? Do you know what led to it? And what people have not understood about that is, because she cannot have a perfect answer for it, leadership works in the same way. Leadership is not about the one moment you made an impact. Leadership is about the various times that you've remained consistent, enough for people to have faith and trust and abilities in you to say, now that's a person I want to watch. And if I remember correctly, Barack Obama once said that when he was reading, and he would love to have emulated Nelson Mandela, because even at the point that Gandhi died, he said, now that is a man I would love to learn from till the day I die. Now, leadership in itself should also be a question of our spiritual depth. And I've often said this, that it is not just about mental magnitude. What about our spiritual depth? Can we exist? We're here to serve, but the theory of meaning and value of human existence. As you come into leadership, do you understand the association of how to give your leadership quality, but command love and the pursuit of good? Now, in the book, The People's Republic, our law states the principles of love of God and love of one's neighbor, presumably alluding to the biblical injunction in Matthew chapter 19, 6-24 and to 22 and 36-40. Now, leadership is not characterized by the inflation of the intensity of how big a leader you are. It should be only based on the relativity of what good do you do and how consistent are you with that path. So even when we talk about academic, and I keep saying this, is that as much as we look towards cause and problems within society, leadership is the basic unit of a family. So it begins with you at home. And Andre said it rather strongly, that when we look at what we are doing, we must first of all have a self-articulation, a conversation of self, and say, this is what I do. So now I can gauge and say that if I come into practice, this is what I give. You can't give from an empty cup. And more often than not, we are allowing leaders who are empty cups to draw from that. And all we are getting back is more from the people and less from the leader. And so if we were to reverse engineer the whole thought of where leadership came from, it was a basic example of us being trusted with the very little part of it. And that is why I say leadership does not need collective responsibility. Leadership requires goodwill. If you are able to participate in the ideas of today and say, I have got goodwill to do this, and we live in a community where people are more likely to want to be called honorable and not to be called horrible. So we are left with a leadership that is not in touch with the realities of today, but is in touch with the forward thinking of today. And we have also to understand that at the end of the day, leadership is not present during crisis. Leadership is consistent even before crisis. So the leadership of social conflict, where we are asking, where did civil societies go? Where did academia go? Where did the institutional prosperity and memory go? Because we need to be quit institutional prosperity. I hear the ideas of the gap between now, what we look at in terms of all the years of generational gaps, but we never taught how to bequeath institutional prosperity to the youth. So we are leaving them with organizations that they cannot run, and now they're bringing in the old leaders again, and we are saying there's a difference. Again, I'd like to demystify the idea of saying they're young and they're old leaders. Age is not a barrier of wisdom. What a 20-year-old might do in government, you might be surprised to what the 40-year-old is doing. So I'd want us to open the context of thinking and allow ourselves to relearn the basics idea of what leadership is, what it would mean to us for the good of our people, but more than ever, what the power of the people towards continued development of leadership is. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my professor. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry there, my sister Tembi will take you. We'll take Tembi, and then we'll take Solomon. Yes.
My apology. I lost connectivity when Comrade Duma was ending his comments.
Yes.
But I wanted to say before Tembi comes in that I agree entirely with what Comrade Nkenke and Duma are saying. And it's also this issue that we probably won't be able to come up with a model leader, for Africa. Leaders lead during different epochs, during different challenges, as they were also saying. But I have another difficulty, Prof. I think this is a very good platform for progressive thought. We need to have probably 2 to 3 hours of discussion, but I have been reminded that I need to proceed to another engagement. So at some point I will be off the platform, but I would love to probably have another opportunity again to engage in this kind of discussion. It's quite exciting, Comrade Prof, what you are initiating, and I would like to have more of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, TG. Thank you very much. And really, it's what Nkenke said earlier on, that we need to have these as often as we can. And I hope we'll engage you, your office, even after the conference or sometimes next year, because we are here to really talk. Let's engage as frankly as possible in a safe space where we can. We are not here to lambast each other. We are here to encourage each other and also to correct and admonish where possible. But thanks, TG. We'll definitely have these. We do have this, but obviously we'll engage you to have more of you in the future. But can I ask you maybe to listen to Thembi and Solomon, and then maybe to respond there before you leave? Thembi, yes, my sister.
Okay, thanks.
No. Thank you, and good evening to the panelists and my leader, the teacher from the African National Congress, and Prof and everybody else. I'm agreeing with previous speakers that indeed we need more of such platforms to reignite ourselves and continue to have conversations as a people. One thing about leadership is that leadership should inspire confidence across all generations, regardless of age. The second issue is that leadership should inspire confidence even to those who are disgruntled, who do not seem to have hope that the systems and democratic process that is put in place can yield results for the betterment of their lives. When you take up a responsibility to say you want to lead, part of the major task of saying I want to lead is because you want to lead your people to be better developed, and to be conscious. From where I'm sitting, we have got a problem, and I'm interested in the views from the panelists and colleagues on the platform as we'll be conversing in relation to the reality is that our economy is not doing well. A majority of young people in our country are disgruntled. One reason from another. In this platform ourselves, we can give economic explanation why the economy is not doing well, and so on and so on. Our people have reached a point where they seem to no longer have confidence in their leaders. But what worries more is that today, unlike pre-1994, where our people were also living in alarming, not good, so good conditions, today our people, especially young, when they're disgruntled, they no longer even want to come and participate in democratic processes which are meant to ensure that they can choose who must lead them. They can choose to hold their leaders accountable. I'm saying it across party political lines. Sometimes I even get worried when I listen to opinion makers in society who are given various platforms in our media spaces, that we seem to want to not teach our people. I want to ask, what is the leadership responsibility that we can do to correct the situation, that no matter how hard it can be, our people must not lose hope in coming to participate in choosing who they lead. And that needs a leadership that can inspire confidence, like I indicated, across economic standings. That if I'm not happy, that if I put Thembi is not doing what I want, I should still have the courage to wake up and go and choose something else. Of course, I would have my own preference that still come and have hope where I belong. But what is more important is that We need a leadership, and I want to get an understanding, how can we correct that? Which can inspire our people to wake up every day, even when they know, I'm looking for a job, I'm not getting it, I get a temporary job, I'm a graduate, this and this is happening, for whatever reason, to continue to want to participate in a democratic process which has brought us to be where we are. And lastly, just to throw in to say, leadership, and I agree with the TG when he says leadership, and I'm trying to unpack it, that leadership of an era. So the era of Mandela, in his capacity as a leader, he had a particular specific role to play. The leadership of today will have to have a particular role to play in taking the developmental agenda of Africa forward, in wanting to redress even effects of your slave eras to all the generations until we have reached where we are today. How do we ensure that we produce that leadership that is going to give confidence to those who are disgruntled to continue to participate in our democratic processes of choosing their leaders? It's really worrying that you'll find a young person who says, for this and that reason, therefore I'm not going to choose a leader. And every time, for example, me, where I come from, when I enter people's houses and I say, are you going to participate? The first voter education is to teach a person that, why is it important for you to go and choose a leader? Before I can even introduce, therefore choose this particular leader. It needs a particular leadership, and that leadership, there's a colleague on the platform who said, leadership will not start when I go and I lead a choir in a church. It will start at home. Actually, I take it even lower and say, it will start with discipline of leading myself, my time. If I say I'm doing this, I'm going to do it in this time. It goes back down to that. How do we reproduce to ensure that our young people remain conscious and not stay away from participating in developmental programs which are meant to develop their lives? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Thembi. Thank you very much. Yes, maybe if you can just allow the TG to give us his response and his parting shots there under the circumstances. Over to you, TG.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. And thank you very much, Comrade Thembi. I can agree with you more. I would like to agree with Comrade Thembi when she says leaders must also inspire not only confidence, but hope. Because, you know, we live during different periods of despair, challenges, and it is during those times that leaders must rise to the occasion to be able to say to people, tomorrow will be better than yesterday. But not just as slogans, but come up with concrete plans, vision, plans. This is what we're going to do. Let's work together to be able to change our situation. So I agree fully. And as I said, Prof, I think I regard this as a very good platform for progressive thoughts. Let's have these debates continuously. And I will be ready whenever your office contact us for the next section. And thank you very much to Dr. Edgars. I think we have really been enriched by your input, and also other people on the platform. I think we need these kinds of discussions. They will make us grow and be better leaders. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, TJ. Thank you very much for availing yourself. And thank you for your humility. Indeed, would like to engage you more in the office. So we'll pick it up, obviously, sometimes next year, early next year, so that we can see what other engagement we can have. It's very important. We agree. And as I said that when Kenke suggested that, I thought, yes, definitely we need to have more of this platform. TG, we are releasing you now. Thank you so much and all the best. with your endeavors, and then we'll pick it up again when we meet you next time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof, and all the best to everybody on the platform. Let's continue to engage.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It seems like Solomon was kicked out, and then there was, I've seen the, I don't know if Dr. Chiliti Rachitanga, because I think you've been really very busy there in the chat room. Maybe we can just give you some time if you want to express yourself. We would like to hear your views. And then we'll ask Professor Edgars to respond and also to give us his closing remarks after you. Oh, Solomon is still there. Sorry about that, Solomon. We take you, Solomon. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof, panel members and the colleagues. What I just want to know from leadership perspective, how do you bring confidence to the followers or the community that is hopeless? Because renewal without rule of law and consequence management, as well as accountability, is nothing. Thank you very much, Prof. Hello.
Perfect, my brother. Thanks, Solomon. Dr. Rachitanga, are you still there?
No, I'm here, Prof. And thank you. I concur with the TG and the Prof. Edgars. But and all I wanted to add, which I've already added on the platform, is that ourselves as Africans, if we just look at the concepts of how we define leadership, we will realize that there's been a long-standing engagement by our people on what this means, to the extent of summarizing it in words. So the Sotho will say Muetela Pili or Mueta Pili, Vendas and Songas Muranga Panda, which means the one who paves the way and leads from the front. And the secret here is to say that this is one who is so brave that whatever obstacles lies ahead, they are willing to be the first person to confront that obstacle. So I think these words that define leadership by African people are not just words, they are rooted in philosophy, African philosophy of what it means to avail yourself to lead people. Brave enough, I think that the TG spoke about courage and bravery. And so it's important that we don't look for cowardice or cowards when we want to select leaders. But then I also talk about another concept rooted in a name called Mdisane, otherwise in English translated to a shepherd, to say that Africans in their philosophy and analysis consider a shepherd to be a leader. In other words, they appreciate that leadership can happen from the front through the one who leads in the front, Muranga Panda, but leadership can also be related to a shepherd who leads from behind, gathering and nudging the head of cattle or sheep or goat, and this might be translated in our context to mean challenges, nudging them from behind. So there is this deep-rooted African philosophy that I wish we should also embrace when we engage the concept of leadership. Lastly, it has always been said that knowledge is power. And so it implies that leaders who bestow knowledge, who bestow power, need to appreciate knowledge as the cornerstone of their power. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, Doc. Thank you very much. Thanks there. I would like to invite Professor Edgars to respond and also just to give us his closing remarks. and then I will close the session after his parting shots. Over to you, my professor. If you can just unmute there, Prof.
Brilliant. Sorry about that, Prof. Doc has just mentioned a very able philosophy, and I'd like to add my 2 cents worth into it. That thinking of leadership in Africa brings to mind the shepherd analogy, which here serves as a crucial element of leadership philosophy. Now, when we look at the shepherd is a leader who does not put self-interest above the ship's interest, does not rest until the ship is provided for, not just for the immediate needs, but ensuring the needs of the future are guaranteed as well. So consequently, the shepherd envisions the unknown tomorrow and plans for it. And this should be the most basic example of what the shepherd should do, because the shepherd is the protector of the sheep and exemplifies the virtues of righteousness requisite to followership. So we must look at 3 things that I think are very important for us in many African states today: the democratic culture of inclusive participation, constitutionalism, the rule of law, human rights and accountability, while carefully trying to walk the trampoline of democratic consolidation. All these areas, we must be able to have a very basic understanding as to what points of consequence lie if we leave them only to leadership, and usually it becomes unresolved. So what are we saying? We are saying that at the end of the day, we are left with a mandate to create and charter a way for the people who see us as leaders, and not entirely from the sufficient measure of today, but what it is that will be bequeathed as institutional prosperity for tomorrow. We must hold ourselves more accountable than our people require us to hold ourselves accountable. There must be a reflection point for us to say, would I work for myself, before we assert why people should follow you? And many will easily indicate and concede that there's a huge difference in the content of character, knowledge, and wisdom of leadership. But that being said, the argument must be simple, that there's a factor that transists from knowledge to wisdom. Tolerance, widespread participation, political consensus, they are necessary considerations for democratic consolidation, but they in themselves do not consolidate a democracy. If there is no reasonable and quality leadership, which itself results from self-knowledge, then the logic of development is defeated. So I leave you with the idea that the creative application of wisdom must be anchored on the aims of governance. We must have the postmodernist constructionist theory of leadership, and not the passive thinking of what leadership is. It has only been an honor to be here and to contribute to the thoughts of the day. Thank you so much, Prof, and thank you, audience.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, my professor. Thank you so much for your powerful words there. We've learned a lot from you. Thank you so much for availing yourself. I know that we are a very, very busy person as well, but thank you for your humility and thank you for availing yourself. We'll definitely collaborate, we'll definitely work together moving forward. There's so much we can do together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining and for attending this session. Tonight has been a little bit challenging with network and also load shedding, but thank you that you made it and you were able to join tonight. Thank you so much. This is our last session for the year, and then we'll pick it up again in January. In January, we'll be launching our new book. There is a book that we've just written. It's written by myself and Professor Zide and another member of our dear Dr. Siwali. It's called the Leaders' Challenges in South Africa since 1994. So it's a very good book, and then the foreword is done by, or is written by, Professor who's this now? Sorry, Professor Makanya. Sorry about that. And then we've got afterwards by Professor Kumalo and Professor Begi Ngomezulu. So we'll be launching this book in January, and then we'll obviously forward with all the details. It details all the challenges and dynamics of leadership since 1994, actually pre-1994, during CODESA negotiations, and then it picks up the leadership of and the tenure of President Madiba Mandela, and then it also talks about President Thabo Mbeki, talks about President Jacob Zuma and President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's a very, very good book in terms of just contributing into the society and the country as well. Other than that, thank you so much to everyone who joined us. If it were your first time joining us, please do join us again next year. As we said, that we meet as often as possible because we want to encourage and empower each other and develop each other as leaders. To our leaders, to our regulars, to our members, many thanks for a marathon year. We've been together and we've learned so much from each other as we've been here every Wednesday. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Once more, we've learned so much together as we have been meeting. Other than that, the session is adjourned now until we meet again next year in January 2023. We will forward you with all the details for the what to call of the first session for 2023. Thank you so much. May God bless you, and please enjoy. Have a wonderful festive season. Yes. Wonderful holidays, festive season, and then we'll meet again next year when we see each other. Thank you very much. The session is adjourned now, and God bless you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.